This is John Warren, publisher of the San Diego Voice and Viewpoint newspaper, coming to you with our program from the desk of the editor. As I share with you each week, the Voice and Viewpoint is San Diego's oldest and only African American adjudicated publication, available in 87 zip codes, 17 cities, unincorporated areas of San Diego County. We may be reached on the internet. You may download our app in the Google or Apple store, Voice and Viewpoint, and so you can pull up our paper weekly at no charge, or you may subscribe, or you may do it at a single copy sales, a newsstand, or retail outlet. And so we are all over San Diego County. We're not limited to north, south, east, or west. And our motto is, a people without a voice cannot be heard. And when you look at our logo on our front page, it says that we serve primarily San Diego's African and African American communities. I like to remind people that news is not black, but we cover news from a black or Afrocentric perspective, because we're always are affected in some way different than most people with whatever takes place. So with that being said, I'm very happy this evening to be joined by Dr. Leonard Thompson, who is our partner in this joint venture of print and electronic, and excited to have with us managing editor of the Voice and Viewpoint, Ms. LaTanya West. And if there is credit to be given for the substance and the content and the structure and the order that we put forth in the Voice and Viewpoint, then that certainly goes to LaTanya, who works at this diligently, seriously. She's probably more dedicated to what she's doing than Mother Teresa was to Calcutta. So we're excited about that. She's going to share a few things with us as we move forward. But Dr. Thompson, so glad to be with you again after the successful event we had on the Midway.
Yes, Dr. Warren. It is a good time to be here in the city of San Diego. So much is going on. And one of the things I tell people consistently is that the summertime for us is not just a vacation time. For us, it's our planning time, it's our growth period. And we produce a lot for our city. And the key thing is the word I think is over and over again is partnership, or what they say, kujichagulia,
yes.
Collective work and responsibility. I would just personally want to say that, people are working so hard. I don't know about you, but I didn't get lunch bought for me today. So I'm trying to get over into your team so that I can get some lunch bought for me. and managing editor, I think that's one of the things that is really good about, how we work as a collective team. We look at the team and see how we can assist each other, but we also value each team member. And so with that being said, I think it's really great that one of our team members is here with us tonight,
Yes.
Dr. Warren.
Yes. And I'm so excited that she is here. She likes to try and stay in the background and low key. But if there's ever a person who's come to the black press with an outstanding track record in terms of media, it certainly is Tanya. Because she's done, the big networks on the East Coast, and she's traveled, and she's just done a lot of things that endear her to what we're doing. When I think about it, she's been on the dramatic circus that we refer to as the Chitlin Circuit through the South doing production, and she's traveled to the far corners of Alaska and taught people how to teach out where they had to go by canoe and plane to reach folks. And then she's lived in the beauty and the glamour and the history of Greece. So she's done a lot. She's a phenomenal teacher and a trainer of teachers. And she's brought that whole structure to the Voice and Viewpoint. And over the next 30 days, we're about to go through a phenomenal transition at the paper, which we touched on last week. We have a whole new arrangement coming, new staff, a lot of things that are taking place, projects. You and I have talked last week extensively. We won't do it to that degree this week about biscuit, grits, and politics returning and other things that we're going to be doing. So it's going to be a big leaf, and it's going to be mindful to me of what we said at our gala about 2 years ago when we said the best is yet to come. So, LaTanya, you want to pick two or three things to highlight for us that we're going to see tomorrow, since our paper hits the ground in front of us, like 5 a.m. in the morning, and then it starts moving.
Right. Well, it starts moving for us come Monday. So it's kind of like we go through a whole bunch of content, and it's kind of like in one side of the brain and out onto the other and onto the page. So there's so much every week, truly, that we try to put together that's a value, we hope, to our readership. I would just say, looking at the front cover, just there's an article that's on ending poverty in California by some California lawmakers that I think will be interesting for our readership to read about, just to see what they have to say about that. Some interesting ideas put forth on that. Just kind of a heads up about Black voters and how the Democratic Party is a bit concerned about voter turnout. We touched on that, I think, early this week in Black Men and Women United. And you might have even mentioned it last week. I can't recall, Dr. Warren, just the importance of getting the vote out, not only in our local elections, but state and national, because the Biden, his reelection might be in jeopardy if we don't get out and vote on a national level. So that's something there that would be interesting. And of course, we always have our community events where we put a spotlight on our people in our communities. So there's some interesting stories there. We've got a spread on gospel at the Midway, and a special birthday girl is focused in our paper, a softball game that I think will be of interest to the ladies out there. So there's quite a few interesting things for everyone, including an announcement about this being National Black Business Month. I don't know if all of you knew about that. So we're going to be covering some things related to Black Business Month. A little bit of history is covered in the paper this week about that. So please definitely take a look. News on newsstands tomorrow.
Well, we certainly do need a Black Business Month, don't we, Dr. Thompson?
Yes. And I was thinking, I remember back in the day that we had teachers that would actually have the voice and viewpoint in the classroom, especially the English classes. And I know that as the reach comes out and as you're building out the staff, that's one of the things I would love to see come back is encouraging some of the English teachers to incorporate the newspaper as a part of their daily or their weekly reading, and having students, you remember back in the day where you used to have students write articles, and if it was a good article, it would make the paper.
Yeah.
I think that, I do a lot of things in the media and with reels and credits and things of that nature. Well, I think we have some outstanding young writers that need to start building their dossier and their credits now with a reputable newspaper. And I'm just excited about the addition to the expansion of the voice and viewpoint and building on this strong legacy. Y'all had legs, now y'all gonna put skating wheels and motor behind it. And before we know it, we're gonna be singing the famous song that everybody says, "Well, we're moving on up."
Oh yeah, we're gonna be saying we done moved up.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah, we already got there.
On our way.
I always tell people we're going down the runway, and every week we go down the runway, and we know that once we start, we either have to lift off or crash, and we haven't crashed yet.
Amen.
So we
And
keep
speaking
going.
of the schools, we definitely are reaching out. That's our plan in the next month, to be reaching out to the high schools, the local high
We have
schools, to
some
get them
phenomenal
involved.
school plans.
Yeah.
Phenomenal plans, because we have found across the country, and I remember a few years ago I was in Fort Lauderdale, and they brought in a class from the school system for our meeting, and there were probably about 200 young people in the high school class that said they had never read a newspaper. They had never picked up a paper or held one. And so what we do is so important, because so much of our community looks to social media, but they're beginning to learn that it's not social media that produces the keepsake record of events. It's the paper, and people come back looking for that copy of the story. Social media is going to fade, but the story won't be there, because we are what they call in the census the trusted messenger.
Yeah.
And so we're excited about that. I just want to throw another observation in too, Dr. Thompson, because you all did such a phenomenal job on the Midway. And as much as people talk about doing things on military ships now, it was the voice and viewpoint and you that did this when nobody else thought about it. I mean, we did back in 1995. We held the president's reception on the USS Kitty Hawk.
Yeah.
And it was anchored here with some 500 people, while across the bay we had 12,000 in the convention center doing a step show. So we had the Gold Coast Classic as a sponsor this week. It's going to also be a sponsor for Jazz at the Creek, and Gold Coast is going to be coming back in some very unique ways that people haven't anticipated, and we haven't given up on that. So we're going to be working those things. Yeah, go ahead, please.
One of the things about it, and this is what I encourage people, is that understand your history. And as you begin to look at your history and you look at the foundation of how we got where we're at, a lot of people don't know or don't recall, but the biggest show that we had ever done was under the Gold Coast Classic and the Voice and Viewpoint, and that was with the Gold Coast Classic, and that was the show that we had God's Property and Bobby Jones at the Civic Center. That was the first time that my company was ever in a union house and producing outside of the church. And that was the launching pad for the other productions in the other areas. And so I always tell people that you got to know the history. We're doing Bayside Gospel Concert aboard the Midway, but way back then, you guys had I would say, crossed over and literally had something on the Kitty Hawk, and the Kitty Hawk wasn't retired. It was actually
it was still active duty, and we did it in such a way that the commanders were involved were African American. They were excited about the idea that they could give young people a chance, and so we ended up with 12 events. A Black College Fair became a part of it, so people came here and they had those experiences. But the event that you're talking about at the Civic Center, some 2,500 people. Not only did we have Bobby Jones as a host in God's Property, but the most significant thing about it was that the U.S. Postal Service used that event to launch the Kwanzaa stamp.
Yeah.
And that was a very significant thing. And a few years ago, I was in Nashville before our recent trip there, and I ran across Bobby Jones because he's still doing his programs. And the first thing he came up to me and said, when can I come back to San Diego? When I come back, I said, you can always come back to San Diego. So we're not through with the kinds of things. We have always been trendsetters. When we did Gold Coast, we had 12 events in a 7-day period. And we have close to $15 million in insurance in terms of what we were doing. And I don't think there's never been another organization, African American, to put 25,000 people in the seats in Qualcomm Stadium since then, or even before then.
And so for anybody who wants to correct that, that is something that was based out of San Diego by San Diegans. And we're not talking about concerts that have come on tour, because we know that Beyonce did have a lot of folks up in the stadium. So I don't want everybody to say, Beyonce did it. The one thing that I want to say to everybody is, and that's when, just give me this moment. I think it is really important as we are growing, as we're seeing people leaving us, as we see businesses going away. I think that is very essential for people to know the foundation that the Voice and Viewpoint has established for our city. The Voice and Viewpoint was the founder and the beginner of the Black Chamber.
Yes.
And so we see the Black Chamber as it is now, but somebody had to bring the Black Chamber here. And that started with you and Dr. Warren, Jerry Warren, saying that we need a Black Chamber. There are a lot of things that were brought to our city through the newspaper, not for the benefit of just you all personally, but it was for the benefit of the city. You would go and you would travel and you would experience all these things in other cities, and then you say, you know what, San Diego can do that. We can do a classic. We could have a Black newspaper. We could have a Black Chamber. We can do this and we can do that, and we can be trendsetters beyond just the city. This is just our home base, but we're going to have a reputation around the world. And you've done that with the newspaper. You've kept the paper going for over 60 plus years. You have the papers, and like I said, from the jailhouse to the White House, the papers being read. And I think that it's so important that people understand that when you begin to try to increase on your goals and perspectives, you got to know the foundation so that you will know how to maneuver. Because there are certain things that I could sit back just as a participant in the Gold Coast and could learn from things to do, what not to do. Sometimes, and I will say this, I think sometimes you guys were so accommodating at the expense of a lot of things,
Oh,
because
yeah.
you were trying to make everybody happy. And now we can sit up there and say, oh, that's not needed. We can get a Sprinter van. We don't need limos, things of that nature.
And you're so right, because as you were talking, one of the things that I remember is that the Gold Coast Classic was the first African American owned event to do a golf tournament at Torrey Pines, because Torrey Pines is considered one of the jewels of the golfing world. And when we went there, their attitude at first was, well, no, y'all can't be here. And we had to remind them, well, you're a public golf course, and we'll be here or you'll be closed.
Exactly.
And so we were able, we didn't fail to go forward, because we come from being first class and being at home wherever we were. And what made the chamber so important, and this is not just memory lane now, because we have a chamber today that is not doing half of the things that we did with less money than they have. Jerry Warren was a vice president of the D.C. Chamber before we came back here. And while she was vice president of the D.C. Chamber, at my senior year of law school, I was a volunteer legal intern for the Small Business Development Center at Howard, which was being operated under the School of Business and Public Administration, which is now a great, big, beautiful building. But the reason I went back in my senior year to do that was because in my undergrad, I was one of the students that created the Department of Business that led to the creation of the school that's there. And so we traveled to other cities doing things. We had involvement locally. Yeah, I see today these people, the Chambers got an urban business resource center. We didn't have all that, but yet we helped everybody who came to our door that had a need for a grant or a contract. I gave free advice in terms of business, how to set businesses up and what to do. So what we're doing going forward is we want to still be helpful. And because I have someone like LaTanya who's able to maintain what we're doing, because we have expanded so in the whole content area. I mean, we're in negotiations with CNN. We have Associated Press. We have all of these things happening that are jumping off at one time that puts us on the same scale as what you might turn on your TV and see on Channel 8. And that's where we should be.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that's more important, and I always tell people, I never get into well, I won't say I never. I will say that it's important that I tell people that we're never going to compare, because what we did back then is that legacy. As people move forth and they expand and they do the things that they do, they might not do it the same way we're doing it, but I believe that everybody has a valuable and important position to play in the community. But I think that the role that God has given us now is iron has to sharpen iron. And as we're sharpening ourselves, we're literally helping other people to see where they can go. And then there's certain times, and I always say this for the youngsters, I can say that now based on my age, for the youngsters out there, sometimes I sit back in awe of some of the creativity and the things that they do, and I celebrate it. The Midway this year was the first Midway that I did not produce.
Right.
I was the executive producer, but Mr. William Goff III, a former student of mine, is now in that role as producer for major events. And a lot of the team got together, and these were young people that executed a well designed thing. And I was able to sit. If you notice, most of the night I was sitting over in the corner. I was still observing, but it was giving the next generation that opportunity. And that's what I see with the Voice and Viewpoint. I see that you're still that constant mentor to all of us. You become the senior statesman. And then now you have this young person that has come in that comes well qualified, well versed, and has a passion and a heart for the newspaper. And then she comes in and says, okay, I'm going to bring some other young whippersnappers, and together we're going to keep the legacy alive. So I'm going to pitch it back to you, Miss West. How does it feel to be a part of this grand movement that's going to impact not only our city but the nation?
It's exciting. It's exciting because I just see so much. I just see the vision, and it's just exciting to be a part and honor. It's an honor, honestly, to be a part of what's coming, what's already starting, really, and what's to come. So it's a lot of hard work, but we're building our team, reinforcing the team we have, and continuing to build it. And it's just very, very exciting, very exciting. So I can't wait for the next couple of months. There's going to be some very interesting and exciting things coming.
Well, one of the things I want to ask you, as you all are expanding, developing, tell me some of the most exciting things, technology-wise or project-wise, that you can share before the unveiling with the people.
Well, we've got a podcast in the works, and we've got some town halls coming up. I think we've already mentioned that. We've got a newsletter in the pipe, a daily, or at least a bi-weekly, something that's going to be different than what we've already been doing. It's going to be more
We are going to
fleshed
get
out.
the daily eventually.
Yeah. Just gosh, that's quite a bit, including the calendar. I know I keep talking about the calendar. I've just been tweaking it because I want to make sure that it's workable and easy for the public. So that's going to be something on the website that we'll be able to share with everyone to put their events, for people to come and see what's happening in San Diego. So, lots of little things on in the works.
Well, that right there is mega. And the reason why I say that's mega is because the one thing as an event planner and things of that nature that we have an issue with many times is we don't know what everybody else is doing.
Right.
And to have a central place that we can go to and see the what's going on in the city, what's already planned, how you can find out more information, see if we are conflicting against each other and how we can support each other versus compete against each other. That's going to be a mega undertaking. And even in of itself, it's almost like a job because you can't just put and post up any and everything up there. It has to be reputable. It has to be vetted. It has to be
exactly,
because if not, you'll have Billy and the Chipmunks having a soiree, and it's just somebody having a backyard barbecue, and they want people to pay. You know what I'm saying? So, so kudos to you. That's major.
Yeah, it's been in the works. I've been working on this for over a year, and finally got the right webmaster with the right skills to help me put it together. It's humble, it's not like bling, 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 but I want to make it as bling as we can with the budget we've got. So, yeah,
we got to tell folks,
rolling that out.
Got to tell all the advertisers that's going to be a hot place to have advertisement on. So you better hit the Voice and Viewpoint up so that you can be seen, heard in the hot space. Now, Dr. Well, I want to jump back to you. Lots of things are happening in the city. A lawsuit has just been filed against San Diego Unified School District, the superintendent, as well as the chief of police and a sergeant. And here's the crazy thing, by officers in the department. This is a turn of events that I don't know if we all saw.
Well, no, I don't think we did. And we've always known that there were some toxic elements within San Diego Unified. The police department always had their problems, but this situation of the chief being in relationship with one of the subordinates, which we understood existed even before the promotions occurred, is not new. I remember a number of incidents over the past 30 years, people in San Diego Unified, and out of respect for the decedents, I won't name who and what they were. But this is not a whole new thing. I'm more concerned as we move forward, and we've had to remind people in Black Men and Women United that just prior to the pandemic, we had the district attorney in, and because of a number of folks who had lawsuits against San Diego Unified, because of the suicide of a particular teacher in San Diego Unified and the abuse and molestation of some students, because of how the parents were treated when they tried to investigate and follow up on it, we persuaded the district attorney to create a task force. And the task force was created to be a safe place where parents could take complaints against school employees and not be shuffled around and those complaints would be investigated according to the California government code. And so what happened is after we did that, then the former superintendent, Cindy Martin, she decided to try to undermine the effort by creating a task force within the school district to receive complaints about allegations of misconduct or abuse of students, and gave the impression that it had to be some kind of a sexual activity for the system to be concerned about it. And so um, many lawsuits were launched. A lot of stuff is still out there. But as we move in the next 2 or 3 weeks toward the opening of school, we want to focus on this school district that you just retired from. We want to look at what is our shortage in terms of male teachers, black teachers, what kind of priorities do we have? We have complaints about the extent to which the superintendent has made himself available to other people. You left a school that's impacted by this new homeless ordinance because it's going to move those people that were creating a safety hazard for kids going to Perkins School. And so I think those are the things we want to look at. We got backpacks, we got giveaways, but I don't want our concern for the kids and our concern for parents, like some who have come to us and we've written some stories about the abuse, the misrepresentation at the administrative level for their concerns. I don't want us to lose track of how important these things are just because we got another, sex scandal in the making.
Yeah, and, one of the things that I think that's really important is the reason why this is big is because it goes down to fraud. There's unfair practices. There have been allegations of harsh work environments, unfriendly work environments, and that's really sad in an institution that is supposed to be a safe haven for young people and for adults in education. So we're going to take close attention to that and see how that moves forward as schools are being in. I'm expecting some resignations to come fairly soon.
Well, but I hope that resignations are not going to represent the end of it. The resignations ought to just be a continuation. One of the things we're going to be looking at, and I don't want to give other people ideas for the things that we're preparing to investigate, but there's a big issue over how much money has been spent each year in terms of settling these lawsuits. And it's a lot of money for the city. There's a lot of money in terms of the school district. It's a lot of money around the country in terms of people dealing with these things. So we have much to look at. At the same time, we're mentioning the schools. I don't want us to forget, and Dr. Thompson, I know we kind of jump around here and half our time is gone, but I want us to be very, very mindful that we still have a couple of other major problem areas. We just had another in-custody death in the jail system. We have more in-custody deaths than any county in California among the 52, 54 counties, and we're still going through this, okay? And we seem to be in a situation where maybe the sheriff can't seem to investigate. On Black Men and Women United the other morning, we talked about how the Attorney General Bonner has come back and forth to San Diego, but he doesn't seem to be able to address the concerns that we have. And I want people to know that if he can't address the concerns, then we have the right to go to the Department of Justice, and we have rights to file complaints with the Department of Justice about the state of California, from the Attorney General right on down the food chain. So we're not just helpless because this stuff is going on. I need us to look at that. I also need us to look at the fact that we need a new fire chief. We're about to launch a search for a new police chief, and the community sees nothing about this. You don't see the job description. There could be people in the city that want to apply, but they don't run these announcements in local media like they should, because that's a part of transparency and total outreach. It's not done. The fire department, in the 38 years, almost 40 years I've been here, the San Diego Fire Department has never one time done any recruitment effort with the Voice and Viewpoint. Even when they had a black fire chief, they didn't do it because he was of our color but not our kind. And just because he came from Emerald Hills, everybody thought that he was wonderful. So we got to be on guard because we have a situation in the making again as we get ready to look for a police chief. We got one black individual, and I say that in quotes, on the seventh floor, and people think that he should be our first black chief. And I am committed to making sure that that never happens, not in this life. Because if there's ever a person who doesn't deserve to be there, if you're so insecure that you tell black officers that they can't even participate in a conversation with black men and women united because your feelings have been hurt, then you certainly don't have any business being in charge of this city and the multiple ethnicity of people here.
Well, one of the things I always tell people is simply this, is that to be in leadership, that means that you have to have very, very tough skin. Two, that you're going to be in uncomfortable conversations, and sometimes you're not going to always agree. But when you're in leadership, you must always come to the fight. You know what I'm saying? Doesn't mean that you have to fight, but you always have to come to the table. You have to fight. And then when you're uncomfortable or you feel like certain things weren't done right, don't take your toys and go home. But you should still have the conversations, because just to be in the mere room says that you're not afraid to have real conversation. But the minute, go ahead, Tanya.
I was just going to say, particularly if you're a public servant. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
That's part of your job.
Yeah. And those are the kind of things that I always say. Now, granted, nobody goes a place and just automatically thinks that I'm going to go there and be abused. But when you are in public leadership and you are in politics or whatever, your job is to show up. Now, the way you represent yourself and showing up is the way you represent yourself. But at the same point, you still have to show up. Now, Dr. Warren, we have been in many of places that have not always liked us. I was with Racial Relations and Advocacy for years, and I got the go home, as a public official. I got folks coming up and saying they was going to whoop my, and everything as a public official and as a school official. But at the same time, I still had to show up because I had a responsibility in the job. And if you're in a position and you're in a job, you have to show up. And when you don't show up, it's a statement that if you can't show up and take this little pressure, how can you take the pressure of the city?
Well,
Or that it's important. Or that it's important to show up in particular arenas. Like, what, we're not important enough for you to show up and take the heat?
Well, also if you're in leadership, you have to be wise enough to have some checks and balances on yourself, okay?
Yeah.
And that's why I have a person like LaTanya, yourself, that I will bounce things off of you all about people and how I feel, because so many times if I responded the way I want to respond, I just hit the knob and flush them and say to hell with it. But that's not going to always, that's not a solution. And when you are representing more than yourself, you have an obligation. And so I'll listen to you. I'll listen to staff. I'll listen to a different point of view. As a matter of fact, I'll go a step further. For instance, I give you a good example with the paper. I don't care about sports. I never have. But you would never know that from reading the Voice and Viewpoint, because there are people who do care about sports, like Darrell and others. And I made a decision years ago to listen to those people. I mean, I don't even know how many people on the football field or on a baseball team. I don't care. I'm not interested. It's never been my interest. But yet we did Gold Coast, and so many times we sit in meetings planning a game, and people be looking at me. I said, don't look at me. Look at her. I don't know nothing about football. I don't care about the game.
Yeah.
But we have to know what our limitations are. And that's how we become stronger, because the people that we don't want to talk to so many times, that's when we have to make ourselves listen to them in spite of how we feel. And that's one of the biggest Achilles heel of the black community. That's why we do Black Men and Women United, and we've done it since 2005, because we realized that we needed a place where we could agree to disagree and still talk to each other in terms of what needed to be done. And Dr. Thompson, you might give people our call sign, because we didn't tell anybody. We got so busy talking, we didn't tell people how to reach us.
Yes, you can call in and be a part of this conversation at 858-251-6111. Again, that's 858-251-6111. Now, one of the things, Dr. Warren, as we begin to move forward, and LaTanya, I want you to chime in on this. We have a special election coming up in less than 13 days. And I don't really see, and maybe it's just me, but I'm not seeing no real push in the media, except for us, and around saying get out the vote. And in my heart of hearts, I believe that the election is trying to be stolen by being quiet.
Well, if it is stolen, it won't be the fault of people like us. My editorial this week says that there's more at stake than a seat on the Board of Supervisors. And the reality is that we have 12 communities in the 4th Supervisorial District with 700,000 residents, okay? And it has already been projected that of those people, less than 5% of them are going to bother to vote. And I reminded people that's not unusual because I've run for office 3 times in this state, and I don't ever remember getting more than 5% of the people to vote. And some of those 3 times were in general elections.
Yeah.
One special election. And people, I think that we don't understand what Dr. King said in May 1957 when he said, give us the ballot. And he went through what we would do. Okay? So then we had a ballot, but we won't use it.
Yeah.
And this is a part of the problem. I want to cut off your thoughts on Tanya.
No. I was just going to say we did put in the paper, courtesy of the County News Center, a map of the district because I know it's changed. And some people might be wondering, well, am I still in the district still in District 4? So there is a map there for that. I think it was in the July 20th issue. What was I going to say though, Dr. Warren? I was going to say, I wanted to ask you though, Dr. Warren, what would you say? Why is this election so important for people to be involved in? Like, what is the direct connection to people? Because I think sometimes, people get busy. Everybody's so busy, distracted. They might not even know that there's a special election coming, And these are the local elections that directly affect our lives. But what would you say? Why do we need to vote in this special election? What's a direct connection?
I'm going to answer you this way. I had a church member once who got up and made an announcement that on the following Wednesday at 7 o'clock, we were going to be giving away iPads and laptops to the first 40 people that came in the door. And then he asked to see a show of hands, and they were going to be free. And he asked for a show of hands of how many people were going to come. And everybody's hands went up. And then he said, we're not going to give away anything, but it just shows where your mind is if you think you're going to benefit personally. Now, here are the issues, okay? We got policy issues there. We got homelessness that's a factor. We got the whole jail scenario. We have a new chief administrative officer we have to put in for the county. We're going to have to get a new director of health and human services. And so we got a whole bunch of things, and because the county has a multi-billion-dollar budget, and it gives at least $1 million to each of the 5 members as a discretionary fund. We have a situation. Why is it important? It's supposed to be nonpartisan. But right now we have 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats. Nathan Fletcher was a Democrat. And so are we going to get a Democrat in there? Because the vote on these issues is going to be reflective of party attitudes. And we know what kind of attitudes we're seeing from Republicans at this point. And so that's why we need to, it's too late after it happens to get all excited. And that's what we do. We wait till it's over and then we want to raise hell. No, we got to put some time in advance.
So do you think that whoever wins the special election is going to probably be the one who eventually goes on for the full term?
Well, there's no restriction on the people who win the special election running, but the winner, since this was just the first part of Fletcher's term, whoever is elected will be in office until 2027.
Right.
Okay, so that's a long time.
So they'll be an incumbent.
They're going to be the 2027. They're going to be there. I don't believe with the 4 candidates that any one person is going to get 51% of the vote. And so I believe that it's already a done deal in advance that it's going to go to the November 7th general election in terms of trying to decide on someone. I also think that people in the 4th City Council District are fooling themselves if they think that even if they vote, that that's enough to make it happen. Because that's just one area within the broader scenario. And most people who live in the city have never looked at the county of San Diego in terms of the magnitude of it. It's one of the largest land counties in the state. And fortunately, when I first came to San Diego, the first place I ever worked was the county. And so by working in county council and doing opinions, I got a chance to see just how big it is. So you got Hillcrest, La Mesa, Lemon Grove, City Heights. You got the Golden Hills. You got all of these communities, and they're not all populated with people of color. And so there's going to be a strong push for the LGBTQ vote. There's going to be a strong push for Amy as a Republican candidate that's running. Two of them, she and Janessa, are Republicans, and Monica is over there running in effect by herself because the guy that's a Democrat, he's not going to do anything, and yet we're not reaching out into all of these communities to the extent that we should. And then we have subtle politics. The League of Women Voters, this little group ought to be really watched. I mean, they do a meeting one place and they announce that they're going to have an additional hearing someplace else. But then when they came to Second Chance the week before, where they didn't even mention Second Chance. So what did we have at Second Chance? We had about 20 people show up, in addition to all of their staff. And so it's already been suggested and estimated in terms of what we're going to do in terms of our turnout. And that's tragic because look what happened with the Asian community. After they killed those people in Atlanta, everybody got concerned about mistreatment of the Asians. And as much as I sympathize with them, the Asian community has a history of being just as racist toward black people as the white community was. And now they kind of in the same boat now. We all come together getting some of the same kind of treatment. But the people are the greatest victims of hate crime in the state of California, and yet they put millions in there for AAPI to help counter it. And so we're not getting because we're not speaking up and we're not speaking out. Makes a difference.
Well,
Yeah.
well, Dr. Warren, and I think that's something to be seen. That in California, especially San Diego, hate crimes against black people are at the highest, and it is very blatant. But when money's come down and when uproar comes, it's never for African Americans. But let it be Jewish, let it be Asian, let it be LGBTQ. There's an uproar that makes with money. People have to begin to ask themselves the question, why? And I would say that the why is that there is a power structure among those cultural groups and those interests that is very financially, politically savvy. And when something happens to them, they have enough financial and political pressure to put on to get the results. Whereas the mindset when it comes to African Americans is we will wait them out 30 days, max 60 days, and they will go on to something else.
Well, that's why, Dr. Thompson, in the interest of full disclosure, we are about to engage in a major hate crime project with the Voice and Viewpoint. Stop the Hate, and we're dealing with it from the AAPI, African American, from all aspects. We just had here in this very room our webinar on hate crimes with the district attorney, and so we're not going to let this go away because historically a lot of the law enforcement entities have tried to declassify the incidents of hate crime so they wouldn't have to report them to the feds.
Yeah.
And then it looks like there's not as many, but there is.
Yeah,
And I think it's again, it all comes back to education, right? And that's part of our role with the Black press, making sure that people are aware and educated about the issues, because I don't think it's any surprise to us that there's more hate crimes against Black people. I mean, it wasn't surprising to me when I found out that statistic. It's a sad statistic. And now it's just about really broadcasting these statistics so that hopefully people can be mobilized to act, to do something to help change it, to require the resources to help make the change. Because I don't think it's a surprise that sadly that in so many areas, Black people are coming in last, education, highest numbers with hate crimes. The list goes on and on, healthcare discrepancies or disparities, all of that. But putting it out there, reporting about it, getting the word out, hopefully it sparks something for people to say, okay, that's enough. what are we going to do to make sure that all these tax dollars that we put out in one of the biggest states in the country, some of those resources come to us and continue to come to us? Because there's this narrative going on that, oh, wow, here we go, the Black people complaining again. What more do they want? You know, and we've got to counteract that because that's nonsense.
Well, I think that this is an issue that we miss. It's not always a money issue. I think that we need to get more acclimated to what used to be a collective attitude. We took the position that whatever is done to us, we're going to achieve in spite of what's being thrown at us. We're going to make it anyhow. We already know it's not level. We know it's not fair. And we're going to just go ahead and fight. And we see other groups imitating what we did. We see the Latino community doing it. You see all of these communities realizing that, okay, it's not level, so that means I got to pull harder. Okay, the brake is on the train going uphill, but I'm going to get uphill in spite of the brake. I'm not going to stop just because I know the brake is there. And that's the missing element, that we have to recapture that collective sense of involvement that takes the position, if it happens to one of us, it's going to happen to all of us, and all of us are in it together.
And we have to learn this whole thing about working together and not tearing each other down. Again, I don't have to agree with you. I don't always have to see eye to eye with you. But, you know, I'm just looking at the strategy of this whole political thing that is coming up with the election. I'm looking at, you know, District 4 is big. You know, District 4 is big, but we actually have an African-American mayor in Lemon Grove. And I would love to see her stomping alongside, you know, Monica Montgomery. We have people that are in the state senate. We have people that are in high positions. We have people that are assembly people that covers those areas. And I would like to see them stomping with Miss Montgomery, because it is going to take us all moving together to do it. I look at this and I say to them, I don't look at the Holocaust in a different lens than I look at the Middle Passage, because I still look at that as a Holocaust of Africans, that millions of Africans lost their life through the Middle Passage. We don't want to talk about the Middle Passage, but we'll talk about the Holocaust. And I think that we should put them side by side, because they were both genocide. They were both hatred. They were both ill-mannered for those cultural groups. And I think that not one, you know, like in the Bible, one sin is bigger than the other sin. No, sin is sin. You know what I'm saying? And discrimination is discrimination from whoever it comes from. And we have to learn to stand. The difference, I would say, Dr. Warren, is that we as African Americans have gotten comfortable, and we feel like we've already overcome, and we don't realize that we still are in the press. We're still under attack, and we still have to do the work. And if we're unwilling to do the work, then we won't see the change.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And we need to, this is, again, part of what we do, Black Men and Women United. And, I've been thinking that, more people need to get involved with what we're doing and how. And so some people say, well, how do I get involved? Well, all you have to do is call the Voice and Viewpoint and ask to be added to our list, because we've learned hard way that we just can't put out the link for the meeting and have everybody in the world jump on. We have to control the people who participate in what we're doing, because everybody is not our friend, and we've seen all kind of hacks being done of events. And I can say we've been fortunate we haven't had that happen yet. But we have to talk more collectively. The churches, I keep saying, are not doing what they used to do. Mm-hmm. Part of it is that the pastors who did it have gotten old. Many of them have died. The churches are not replacing that element, many of them, with another generation that's on fire, the same way that generation that came through civil rights and struggle was there. Mm-hmm. And so that's part of what we'll be doing with the paper. We hope that the young people we're bringing in, that we're going to, through information, reignite a fire and a passion in them, so that they will all realize that I have a role to play. And when we realize that God doesn't create surplus people, then we will get serious in terms of what is my position and what's on the table to be done.
So LaTanya, Ms. West, and you're in another generation that is going to be mentoring another generation. What is your word that you are being motivated to motivate these young people to say that print media is still viable. Print media is still an essence. I always laugh, how a police officer would come in and flip their badge. You know what I'm saying? Back in the day, you would flip your press pass, and that was the thing that got you in. So how are you empowering this next generation of reporters and writers?
It's really just hands-on, honestly, giving the feedback, giving the encouragement, as much as I can, humbly leading by example, just doing your best, an example of excellence. I did that as a teacher, my teacher colleagues, same thing, So I just kind of take that, the things that I did with my students and my colleagues in the classroom, and I've just brought it over to the newsroom, to be honest, and keeping them involved and asking their opinion. What do they think? Having that open door, so to speak, policy, yeah, and just keeping the dialogue going. I think it's just important for young people to understand that they have a voice, that they're important, their views do matter, their thoughts about things matter, their dreams matter, and just encouraging that, listening and encouraging.
Well, we also do some other things too. I was just reminded, we have new people coming on. We require that people view the documentary Soldiers Without Swords, the history of the black press. I have regular meetings that are teachable moments, because you know how I like to teach, about whatever issues come up. I'm giving you the background to where the issue started. Just like a lot of people were talking about, affirmative action, and you didn't know where it came from or how it started. Well, the first thing I had to tell you about was, no, affirmative action didn't start as a affirmative action. It started way back there with the Chicago plan, the Philadelphia plan, 8A set-asides and amendments to the Small Business Administration Act. And I believe in giving people background so that when you have background and history, now you can understand better what you're dealing with. And we send people out on real meaningful assignments. We don't do make good, go cover the flower club and, who cooks the best chili in the cook-off. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in the things that are impacting people. And one of the things that's made the Voice and Viewpoint over the years, from the very beginning, we went for the little people. We want to know what little people think. How are you involved? Because you're the one that's left out of what's going on. And that's where the action is. It's always been there. Instead of everybody who's got a title and, and everybody wants their pictures and stuff like that. So we want the little people. We pass that on. We encourage dialogue. We encourage discussion. I'm not going to send anyone to the Board of Supervisors or the City Council without first being sure that they understand what the Board of Supervisors is and how it functions. Because when I was a law clerk, when I came here, I worked with lawyers who didn't understand what the City Council was and didn't really understand what the Board of Supervisors was. And here they worked there as a part of it. And so we make assumptions about what people know. And believe it or not, I worked with some people, the furthest they had ever traveled was from El Centro to San Diego. Well, what about the rest of the world?
Yeah.
And
that's one of the things, Dr. Warren, what you're saying is that many times I see people going to the city council meetings and requesting something that is a county issue. And because they don't know what's county and what's city, they go to the wrong entities and wonder why they're not getting their answers answered or their questions answered. It's so important for you to educate yourself. And that's what I would say back in the 60s people had to do. They had to educate themselves. It wasn't like I could literally go right now and say, Siri, what happened in 1957 on this street and everything? And Siri will give me the answer. We don't know if Siri is right or not. All we know is Siri said it. And if Siri said it, we're going to listen to it. Well, I had to change the voice of Siri for me. I called Apple up and said, can I get a Shaniqua? Because Siri got smart with me one day, and I said, me and Siri is not cool no more. And so I say that is because information is so readily available, but bad information is too.
That is.
Bad information is out there too. Now, we only got a few minutes left, so I got to just ask this question. LaTanya, you could jump in on this one. Teflon Don, is he going to get away this time or not?
Oh, he's going to jail.
Oh gosh. I'm just wait I probably shouldn't say this. I just want justice to be served. I hope. I'm praying.
Now, this is more than justice. Now, I'm for justice too, but I'm over here with some vengeance. Okay.
I was trying not to go there,
Yeah, I'm
Dr.
I'm over here
Ward.
with some
Trying not to
vengeance.
go
And
there.
I'm so excited about something. There's so much of Trump's whole approach has been against people of color, and when you really stop and look at it, the sister in New York, she's black. The DA in New York in the city that's going after him, he's black. The sister in
Hmm.
Atlanta, she's black. And Lord, if it wasn't enough, now you just got a black judge in D.C. that's not going to take no prisoners.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay? And I believe that with Jack Smith, what they're going to do is manipulate to have his federal trial first because they need the federal conviction, which will block him from running. And he wants to change venue, and they're not going to let him move the venue out of D.C. because we know in D.C., Chocolate City, we know what he's going to get in the jury there. They can go all day long, but black folks they're going to be the ones that's going to make the difference. And so I think this is it's a pivotal moment, not
Mhm.
just because of his sins or his crimes, but because he has so blatantly made it clear that he wants to destroy the republic that we
Yeah, it's
have.
so I'm sorry, go
No,
ahead.
go on, please.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's so important just internationally, not just nationally, internationally. So if he gets what he deserves, then at least we're not the laughing stock of the whole world because he's just kind of made a travesty of our form of government with what he's tried to do. So that's my 2 cents.
And I think that he should go ahead and pay Shaggy for the use of his song. It wasn't me. You know what I'm saying? I think that every time he come out on stage, that should be playing. It wasn't me, but we caught you on camera. It wasn't me. You know what I'm saying? Because that is his answer to everything. Everybody's wrong. He is right. But I made a statement this morning. Any man who says that if he if she was not my daughter, I would date her. My thing is that
Oh
man is
yeah,
sick, and we need to then commit him to the insane asylum that he needs to be in and call it a day.
yeah. Here, here.
Yeah.
I second that emotion.
Well, you notice in all that's going on, the wife is not visible in anything.
Quiet.
Okay,
No,
you don't even know where she
silent.
is. I mean, she and the son, she's got her million, she's got her citizenship, her parents got their citizenship. What does she need him for at this point?
Hmm.
Yeah,
His own
no,
children ain't there with him, and the big secret is that if people who were in the room with him weren't talking to Jack Smith, and they wouldn't have all the information that they have, which they couldn't have got otherwise, unless it was from in the room.
yeah, and you know, and the thing about it, and for all my African Americans that do support and that are Trumpers, the thing that I would say to you is simply this: any president that is duly elected by the United States who refuses to respect and honor a former president to the point that they won't even put that president's picture up in the White House while they're in office does not represent this nation in totality. And anytime that you see that type of disrespect, nobody should ever be elected to run this country that has that immoral compass that cannot even be have enough class to say, even though I don't like him, I'm going to do what's right, and he won't.
Well, let me put the icing on the cake. You're talking about people, philosophy, and good government. The cancer at the heart of America is racism. And the people supporting him are supporting him because he becomes the manifestation of everything that's racist. The mega thing is just a testament to the racism. It's getting too black, it's getting too brown. We're not having enough babies, white folks, and we're about to be replaced, and we're becoming a minority. And that can't be because this is our country. So we got the cancer culture going, the changing of history, the attempts to change history, and they would succeed if it wasn't for social media and the fact that we have tools that we never had historically in the past. That's why back in the 60s, when we talked about history, we said history was just a matter of his
Story.
HIS story,
Story.
okay, not our story.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Warren, Ms. Latanya West, we have exceeded our time for this evening. What a lively discussion.
Yeah, among ourselves, huh?
Oh no, there's people chiming in. There's people chiming in. You got to read
Okay.
the things. But it was a great time. This is from the desk of the editor. God say the same. We will see you next week right here on GODRadio1.com.
And thank you, Tanya, for being with us. It's always a
Oh,
joy.
glad to be here. Thank you
Okay.
for having me.
Okay.